Welcome to Crime Talk. Today we are discussing the disappearance of Madeline McCann.
So the parents of Madeline McCann struggled to have a child for years. Eventually they resorted to IVF and Madeline was brought into the world. Okay, so the disappearance of 3-year-old Madeline McCann was highly publicized. It was questioned whether or not her parents did it to get rid of her. Was she abducted? Did she leave the hotel room looking for her parents and then get abducted? Or did the parents' friend do it? Did he help do it? So there's a lot of questions, and she's still missing. So the question is, where is she today? Madeline was born May 12, 2003, in Leicester, England, United Kingdom. Her parents were Kate and Gary McCann. She had 2 younger siblings. They were a set of twins. So they went on vacation with 5 of their friends and their children. They stayed at Ocean Club Resort in Portugal. The resort that they were staying at had a kiddie club where kids could go to be looked after while the parents enjoyed their vacation, went sailing, whatever. On May 3rd, 2007, about 5:30, Kate, Madeline's mother, met the children at the pickup location from their kiddie club. She noticed that Madeline was very tired and asked to be carried home. Kate read them to bed and said that the children were extremely tired and had fallen asleep before the end of the book. So the McCanns, Kate and Gary, were headed to the Tapas restaurant that evening for dinner. They went with their 5 friends who were also on the trip with them with their children. Their children were also in the hotel rooms of the friends. The McCanns stated that they had left their balcony door unlocked, but the curtains closed so that they could easily access their hotel room from the poolside, which was closer to the Tapas restaurant, instead of accessing the hotel room from the main door. McCanns told lead investigators the balcony door was at ground level and could not be locked from the outside, only the inside, which was a big red flag for the investigators in the beginning. Leaving your children alone in a foreign country for several hours while you attended a dinner with the door unlocked, to which you would be far enough away that you would not be able to keep a lookout. About 8:30, they headed down to the Tapas restaurant. Around 9:05, Gary got up from the table to check on the children. The plan was to alternate between each of the adults to check on the children, including Madeline, her siblings, and the rest of the group's children. Around 9:25, Kate was beginning to get up for her round of the children when one of the friends in the group offered to check on her. He entered the room through the patio door, and he said he didn't go into the children's room. He said he heard one of the children rolling over and didn't check. At 10 o'clock, Kate went to the apartment to check on the children, entering in once again through the patio door. She was shocked looking into the children's room from afar, seeing more light than what she expected to see, and the door being opened more widely than she recalled it being. She got to the door and wind slammed the door shut, and at this time, she realizes Madeline's bed is empty with the window open. She ran back to the restaurant, screaming, "Madeline is gone. Someone took Madeline." Search began and lasted until around 4 a.m. the following day. Around 9:15, the night that Madeline disappeared, Jane Turner, one of the friends of the McCanns, was checking on her children, and she was returning back to the restaurant when she saw a man carrying a sleeping child. It wasn't until later she realized the significance of her seeing this man. It may have helped add a timeline to Madeline's disappearance, along with 2 people passing possibly the same man not too long after with the same description and the same child's description. The McCanns and their friends went to Tapas every night during their trip around 8 p.m. Prior to Madeline asked her mother Kate, "Why didn't you come up when we were crying last night?" Madeline was referring to herself and her siblings. Now that Madeline is missing, people were wondering what made them cry. Did the man enter her room or her abductor enter the room and that was what made her cry? And he just had not gone through with the plan at that moment? Now, according to journalists and residents of the area, nothing like this happens in that part of Portugal. It's the safest place of Portugal.
It's really weird that he only took, or she only took, Madeline and no one else. None of the twins, the other cousins.
Well, the other kids weren't in the room. They were in their
So it's just
friends.
Madeline.
It's just Madeline and her siblings.
And the twins.
Which, Madeline is the only female. I believe she had 2 brothers.
Oh, okay, so that's okay.
I didn't look into depth of who exactly she had, but I think she had 2 brothers. So they were clearly after a girl. But why did they specifically go after Madeline and not any of the other cousins? Was it just because they idiotically left the door open because they were like on ground level? Like, what made them go after her? It was widely acknowledged that mistakes were made during this so-called golden hours soon after her disappearance. Border and Marine police were not given descriptions of Madeline for many hours, and officers did not make house-to-house searches. According to Madeline's mother, roadblocks were first put in place around 10 o'clock the next morning, 12 hours after she was reported missing. Police did not request motorway surveillance pictures of vehicles leaving the night of her disappearance, and it took Interpol 5 days to issue a global missing persons alert. Not everyone at the resort had been interviewed. The crime scene had not been secured. Volunteers looking for Madeline were in and out of her room she was taken from, touching things, leaving footprints, and examining the window where she was more likely taken through. So the crime scene was tampered, which means that any possible evidence in that room could have been tampered with, and the court could throw out the evidence if there is ever to be a trial. Police, however, did take samples from Madeline's bedroom, which were sent to 3 forensic labs in Portugal. It was reported June 1st, 2007, that DNA from one quote-unquote stranger had been found, but around 20 people had entered apartment 5A, which she was taken from before it was closed off, according to Chief Inspector Olegario Sousa of the PJ, which is the police department of Portugal. Madeline's mother stated that a police officer placed tape across the doorway of the bedroom but left at 3 o'clock without searching the apartment. The police department released information in 2008 that showed that 5A had laid empty for a month after her disappearance, then was let out to tourists before being sealed off in August of 2007 for more forensic testing. So I would assume that from July through August that it was let out to people for renting. So I'm assuming that's like 100 people in and out of a hotel room in like a month, because the disappearance happened in May. I would assume mid-June or whatever, that's like a month afterwards. That's a lot of people.
It wouldn't be 100 people, though.
Well, like, you would assume, like, if there's
Like 10.
multiple bedrooms in there, and if they rent it, it's not an actual apartment. If they call it an apartment because they're not, that's what they call hotel rooms. In the U.S., it's called a hotel room or a condo, but it's 2 bedrooms from what I've read. So their parents' bedroom and then the kids' bedroom. So that's kind of like more like a condo here in the U.S. because like hotel rooms don't really have bedrooms here.
30 people.
So
at most.
Okay, 30 people, whatever. But if they have kids, there's more. So a similar situation happened outside where the police did a poor job. And I'm not hating on all police by saying this, but I'm just saying that this particular case was handled very poorly, as if no one had any training or they didn't care about the case.
You can say that louder. You don't have to whisper.
I didn't mean to whisper. Sorry. So as I was saying, because they didn't properly close off the outside as well, people gathered by the front door of 5A, including next to the children's window, which is expected that the abductor may have entered or left, leaving evidence behind, to which is now destroyed. And an officer had dusted the bedroom window exterior shutter for fingerprints without wearing gloves or protective clothing.
Wow.
Everything at this point has been tampered with.
Just giving this girl no chance whatsoever.
Of being found at all. So as of 16 hours ago, when we were recording this episode, 16 hours ago, there is a suspect who has been identified, and police are saying with 100% certainty that they have the man who took her. Or investigators. I think it's just investigators. I don't think it's actual the police force. I think it's investigators. That they have actually found the person who took her. Now, if there were to be a trial, they have nothing. Unless, God forbid, there is a body. And I'm saying this because I would like her to be alive and not dead. That's why I'm saying, God forbid, there being a body found. But, they have nothing. All the evidence that they do have will be thrown out so fast that the frickin' prosecutors' heads will spin. Like, the defense doesn't even have to try to get out of this at this point. Because there's nothing. The McCanns have set up Madeline's Fund, leaving No Stone Unturned Ltd. On May 15, 2007 to raise money and awareness. Now, the parents were a suspect in her disappearance for a very long time, I think like over a year, before the police made the case archived, which kind of means cold case. 12 days after her appearance, Robert Murat, he was 34 years old at the time, he became the first suspect. The journalist told police that he had been asking a lot of questions about the case, which Murat said he wanted to help because he had a daughter the same age as Madeline. And Madeline's parents, along with their friends, had seen Murat outside Apartment A shortly after the disappearance. Beginning on May 15, 2007, now 12 days after she disappeared, Murat's home was searched. The pool was drained, his cars, computers, phones, and videotapes examined. His garden was searched using a radar, like a ground radar. Sniffer dogs and 2 of his associates were questioned. In March of 2008, one of the associates of Murat that had been questioned had his car set to fire with the words "Fala" spread in red on the pavement. Fala means speak.
Okay.
So there was nothing linking Murat or his friends to the disappearance. And Murat's suspect status was lifted in July 21st, 2008, when the case was archived. So in April of 2008, he actually received a 600,000 euro settlement, and his friends also earned 100,000 euros each.
Oh, for them going through all his stuff and their stuff.
Yeah, I guess. And like destroying property, pretty much.
Yeah.
Madeline's Fund hired several firms of private investigators. There were several sightings, one from Barcelona in 2008, where a young girl fitting the description of Madeline said to a Spanish man in English, "Can we see Mummy soon?" That sighting has not been pursued. A Spanish agency, Metodo 3, had been hired, which put 35 investigators on the case in Europe and Morocco. The relationship came to an end in part because the agency made several public statements that concerned the McCanns, including one to CBS that said, I quote, "We know the kidnapper, we know who he is, and we know what he has done," end quote. Another hit shortly after Madeline's disappearance, when a woman had said to 2 British men in Spain whether they were there to deliver her new daughter. Reservoirs near Praia were searched when she went missing, and the use of ground radar by South African property developer Stephen Birch, who said in 2012 that scans showed there were bones beneath a driveway of a house in Praia da Luz. I didn't find anything else about the bones that were discovered by this guy.
Probably nothing, since nothing came
It was probably
about.
a dog or something if something was never...
Yeah.
come up about it, or they couldn't find enough, I don't know, maybe they didn't have a warrant to dig it up. So as of today, there is a new suspect, 43-year-old Christian Bruinick. The lead investigator on the case, Hans Christian Wolter, he said, and I quote, "When we still have questions, it could be nonsense to charge rather than wait for the answers that could strengthen our position," he told the Mirror. And I'm going to quote independent.co.uk. But a report on Sunday suggested that the suspect, who is currently serving sentence for rape and drug trafficking and has refused to speak to police, believes the lead investigator's comments to be a quote-unquote bluff. Now, if you're being accused of something that could potentially add more time to your sentence, your first reaction is it's just a bluff, instead of saying,
No.
"That's not me," or "No, I didn't do that. Like, I did these other shit," or "I didn't do anything at all." It's like, it's a bluff. He's legitimately saying, like, "Oh, you're bluffing. It's been 14 years. Like, I got away with this," is what he's pretty much fucking saying. But that is it for today's episode. Unfortunately, Madeline McCann has not been found. She's still a missing person. This case is still ongoing, so if there is any more details to put out there, we will do as much as possible. But that's it for today's episode. Our sources and information is listed in the YouTube description box under this video. I have to say that because this goes on multiple platforms. And the contact information for anyone who has any detail on Madeline's disappearance is on the screen and will also be listed in the description box.
My final thoughts is I'm not a parent, but there is no way that I'm going to be in another country and be in an area where I have no idea if I can hear my kids if they scream for help or
Especially if
go
you
wine
know
and dine.
that your daughter the night before was crying and you couldn't hear it. It's like, why not do takeout?
The whole situation just seemed like a big snowball effect of bad things, and no one stopped the snowball when it got so big, as in she being taken. The door could have been locked on the patio could have been locked, and they just used the front door or something.
But if you're gonna leave your child in a room, I don't recommend this, but if you're going to leave your child and you're going to go out to eat, don't do this, first of all. But lock the doors. Don't be lazy about it. Use the front door, which locks from the outside also, because shit like this happens. Like, I would never do that. I never even leave my freaking house unlocked when I go to the recycling bin.
Especially if your 3 kids are home alone. The oldest is 3.
Even with my 2 pit bulls and my German Shepherd, I don't leave them home alone.
And there's no adult or at least a teenager there.
Yeah.
To do something in case something happens.
To call 911.
You're in another country and you don't even have at least a teenager there to watch your kids with the door unlocked.
Like, you're in a hotel room or something, or apartment from if you're overseas.
Just use a little bit of common sense so this doesn't happen as often,
Again,
please.
like this poor girl. But that is it. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you stay safe out there.
Bye!